Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into another episode. I am your host, Paulie DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today I will break down All-Star Western Volume 1. It was titled Guns in Gotham, and it was written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti with art by Moritait, Phil Winslade, and Jordi Bernet. The first 6 issues were released between November 2011 to May of 2012. This series features Jonah Hex, who was created by John Albino and Tony DeZuniga between late 1971, early 1972 in All-Star Western number 10, which was later changed to The Weird Western Tales. His backstory has remained relatively unchanged since then, with him being a ex-Confederate soldier turned bounty hunter who later acquired an extremely identical facial scar. Yikes. Hex has also been in his own limited series, with the most recent one being handled by the same gentlemen who were in charge here, Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray. Some of his bigger endeavors have been fighting for the Monitor in the Crisis on Infinite Earth story, plus he was part of a team called the Five Warriors from Forever, where he fought with the likes of the Black Pirate and Enemy Ace. Issue number 1 opens in 1880s Gotham, which isn't the West, but All-Star Eastern doesn't quite roll off the tongue, so I won't get on anyone's back early yet. Jonah arrives in town, wasting about 4 seconds before shooting someone as he heads to a meeting with local lawman Detective Lofton and Police Chief Cromwell, who are also joined by Dr. Amadeus Arkham, who made a 1989 debut in a series called Arkham Asylum. So yes, he is a descendant of Jeremiah Arkham. All of the men investigate the murder scene of, you'll never guess, a prostitute that a serial killer in town has been targeting. Okay, I know the Jack the Ripper tales are fascinating, but man, they are more overused than slow motion in a Snyder flick. Like, more stale than a week-old baguette. Hex hits a saloon because what's a Western tale without a massive bar fight, and after a lot of ass is kicked by him, a lady he knows named Belle is asked for information on the killer dubbed the Gotham Butcher. A+ for originality on that one. The next day, Joan is awoken to find out Belle has been murdered on his behalf. This scene did a lot of things with not only setting the tone, but severing the one tie that our protagonist had to his new environment, built tension and uneasiness. This event sets him off on an investigation, his style, so brutally beating people down and shooting first, hardly asking questions later. Oh, and it appears Amadeus has his mom locked in a closet. Both men end up finding their way to a high society event where they meet Colonel Hammersmith, who reminded me of Colonel Love from the Mask of Zorro movie, and then we see Dr. Dupree, who's definitely not evil, and Mayor Cobblepot, who for sure passed on some genes to Oswald. Most importantly in this scene, it's noticed that many people inside are wearing skull rings. That is a big clue to Jonah's mystery. Boy oh boy, Gotham breeds more villainous freaks than a band of horny jackrabbits producing their offspring. Issue number 2 gives us a good look at Amadeus' home, which obviously would become Arkham Asylum. Inside, he and Jonah connect the dots between the skull rings to something called the Crime Bible and the religion of crime, because clearly in the 1800s no one gave a crap about secrecy or subtlety, which is showcased even further when a group of attackers, dressed in a manner that would have made Nathan Bedford Forrest proud, don't sneak up to the mansion or use their double-digit person advantage, but instead just walk up to the front door of the place so they can be picked off one by one in a fantastically drawn shootout scene. Over in a meeting of antagonistic aristocratic assholes, they mention a dozen men were sent to deal with Hex, but I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Anyway, a Mr. Paste, Montrose, and Bronson have Chief Cromwell hostage, allowing Dr. Dupree to do his best League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Fu Manchu impression on the poor guy. However, Hex and Arkham interrupt only to be tossed around by a Mr. Clean gorilla hybrid who gets ready to rip Jonah's head off. Issue number 3 begins with Amadeus saving Jonah so he can proceed to kick the crap out of Dupree and Cromwell can be rescued. He later accompanies Hex and Arkham to a sit down, but it's interrupted by some guys going full Franco Nero's Django on them with a big Gatling gun. Lofton and Cromwell are shot to death, with Jonah saving Amadeus and foiling the old school drive-by, jumping into the horse wagon in order to dispatch the attackers. He's definitely efficient in that department, no question there. This attack is the final straw for Jonah, as he now plans to leave Gotham in the dust, even against Amadeus' request to stay. The one thing that does get him to stay, though, is witnesses spotting the wanted Trap brothers, Jasper, Sam, and Bo, who are first seen savagely murdering a young blonde, which I'm sure garnered some edgy comments, but it was a way of doubling down on setting the tone, and at the end of the day, those things were sadly accurate for the time. You don't need me to tell you more on that. Read a book. These 3 wanted men were the reason Hex came to the East, and he's very pleased to find them. Issue number 4 gives us a look at how Batman was not the first hero to lurk in the shadows of Gotham, as Jonah uses them to kill 2 of the Trap brothers before getting a tad sadistic with the 3rd one, which he doesn't appreciate being bothered during. An older man named Thurston Moody, who is definitely not evil, then approaches Hex saying he'd like to hire him to find his son and is willing to pay 50 grand for his time. Since our main character's single motivation this far has been cash, he accepts, heading to an orphanage to start investigating and using his poor communication skills to piss off a nun named Sister Marks. Amadeus is conveniently present due to being in the adjacent church, which leads into the 2 men discovering a barely alive child that was missing for years and was among many children that have been kidnapped over an unspecified period. The big clue that the men find is that the boy looks to have spent a lot of time underground in the sewers, so Hex and Arkham team up again to head down there, where they find a scene that's quite Temple of Doomish. So Jonah gets to work showing off his great stealth skill, but Amadeus does not, getting spotted and caught by a deranged humanoid thumb. Issue number 5 has Jonah revealing how he really feels about Amadeus, telling his captor to shoot him, but things go down in other fashion, pun not intended, and ending with the main characters getting tossed into a water chasm that plunges them deep down into Gotham's underground caves and catacombs. Arkham has a very apt moment to mention the "Batman couldn't get that info out of me" quote when he openly admits that he shit his pants as they were falling. Now stuck on a cliff with nothing to do but light some matches, Jonah shows again he cares not about the doctor and then gives up almost immediately on trying to escape. Lucky for them, a stroke of Deus Ex Miajonica, aka a vicious group of subterranean native warriors called the Miajani, show up. Yes, I made a Deus Ex Machina joke in my Frankenstein Agent of Shade Vol.1 video, and I will make others if the opportunity presents itself. Sue me. While another fantastic fight sequence is laid out, I have to mention that during the New 52, the Gotham sewers hosted more bizarre denizens than Futurama's New New York, plus throw in the state of Rhode Island's population. After the Miajani are fought off, Arkham and Hex have to rock climb, where they run into a giant bat, because of course they friggin' do. Issue number 6 kicks off with Jonah valiantly slaying the giant bat that didn't make the final cut of Batman Forever, which earns him the respect of the Miajani that he didn't kill yet, so they show him and Amadeus how to leave the caves through a vine pit. Where do they end up? Wayne Manor, currently inhabited by Alan and Catherine Wayne, establishing that the 2 men may have just traipsed in what would be the Batcave. Or, you know what I mean. These inclusions from Mayor Cobblepot to Blackgate Prison and Arkham Asylum's inception were great, since they're all mentioned or seen in other series. At least there were early attempts at preserving continuation and history in the New 52. It's seen next, the Wayne family have long standings with kindness welcoming our main duo inside, and Alan using his local stature to start a police raid on the child slavery in the sewers. A big shootout goes down, rounding out a book of excellent action scenes, and Hex gets into prospector mode on the big ugly guy that tried to kill him and Amadeus in order to just get his hat back. Good time for me to get this out. Hex's attire is quite paradoxical. How in the hell are we supposed to like, support, or root for a guy who still wears a Confederate Army uniform 15 plus years after that war ended? I don't know, and I don't care. It's eventually found out that the whole operation belonged to Mr. Moody, the man who hired Hex, which somehow allows him to figure out that the Moody son was taken by a family that had lost a son, so that Thurston would do something, since losing a child of his own, it's a bit rocky. Kind of confusing too. Things wrap up at the Moody mansion, where we meet Miss Moody being told that her husband is a criminal, and the interior decor indicates he's for sure a Court of Owls member, one of the best things to come out of the New 52. Thurston has cut town, heading to Louisiana, so that's where Jonah is going, and he's already expected by a couple that's named Cinnamon and Nighthawk. There were also 2 backup stories involved in this volume, so let's get into those quick. The first tale was drawn by Jordi Bernet, and it features the first character to be called El Diablo, Lazarus Lane, whose name is most likely a reference to the Lazarus effect, taken from the medical term derived from Lazarus of Bethany, raised from the dead by Jesus Christ. So now you know where the DC plot device Lazarus Pits got their name. You probably already did though, so sorry for wasting your time. Since this was my first time looking into Mr. Lane and his origin story, he's called the Spirit of Vengeance from being possessed by a demon that has a flaming whip and rode a black horse. Ah, but wait, before you point fingers at Marvel, they had a character called Phantom Rider from 1967, and this character was created in 1970, so Ghost Rider, who was created in 1972, can't be a ripoff of him. Ah, but wait, Phantom Rider's power set is basically Spectre, but Hell version, and Spectre from DC was created in 1940. Bottom line, all the things that we love are ripped off, we just need to find where they came from. Where was I? Ah yes, Lazarus helps the survivors of a town, the sheriff, along with Rosita, Henry, and Merle from Zombies. Also, a captured native, 2 Crows, is told about the Wise Owl Curse, and El Diablo's enemy, the Black River Spirit Warrior. That's it, that's all, we won't see this guy again. Goodbye. The second story, the Barbary Ghost short story, kinda sucks. The art by Phil Winslade is great, but it's nothing more than just another generic revenge story with the overused dig 2 graves when seeking revenge line even showing up. Which does feel right for this scenario though, since the main characters are Chinese, and of course famous Chinese philosopher Confucius coined that term. The plot is literally lead character Yan Mei Qian going true grit on a Chinese criminal ring run by Bo Long after they had a Hadfield versus McCoy feud. She takes on the mantle of the Barbary Ghost using fake magic that is really fireworks, and effortlessly kills Bo because she got a girl he was doing his Jabba the Hutt reenactment on to snitch, and just shoots him in anticlimactic fashion. I did find the henchman sing pretty funny though, complimenting an enemy's aim before shooting him and then getting tossed out of a window when he was shot with an exploding arrow. I don't have to go too crazy on the final thoughts here. The plot is exactly what you should have expected and hoped to see. Wild West antics, Jonah Hex eliminating a lot of people in garish manner, and a bit of adventure. The plus part is we get a mystery thrown in as well, all tied around a new enemy to the main character. The creative team here were surely in constant contact with Scott Snyder since he was reconstructing Gotham's past through found documentation and flashbacks that go back even past the years this title takes place. And I'm really glad to see that at least some writers and creative teams were just mixing and matching all their ideas and seeing what worked best. That helped in some departments majorly. The duo of Hex and Arkham worked quite well with their verbal interactions. They line up with their respective personalities and backgrounds, along with effortless humor throughout that added an extra layer of fun to this first volume. Also, Amadeus's consistent psychoanalysis in narration was something unlike anything else in the New 52. I'm sure this was already said hundreds of times about the art when the comics first came out, but my goodness, does it really work with this title. The big bold black outlines, the aesthetic with the rain in issue 3 and the sky in issue 2, the character designs, they all had striking and defining features, especially in the facial regions without heavy detail, almost reminiscent of Frank Miller's Sin City but with color. It really rang true in creating a fictional Wild West Gotham. Only thing I wasn't crazy about was the women all basically looking exactly the same but with different hair color. Truthfully, I can't wait to get into this series more, so I'll leave it at this, and if you've watched until the end, I want to thank you personally for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to join me next time for Teen Titans Volume 1.